Hi. We have a quorum. This is a wonderful thing. Oh, you're on mute, Jude. You're muted. Yay, there we are.
I wish they would just sign us on without being muted.
I agree. I agree. So I did not hear from Jeff and Michael. I think Michael is choosing to focus elsewhere, we'll say. So I'm not expecting Michael. And I do want to talk with Dave Menzies because I'm not sure whether based on, how things are with him, whether he'll want to continue or not. So anyway, so I don't know whether Jeff is going to join us. I haven't heard from Jeff, so it could be just us. I'm not expecting Michael, and I did call David, but I left a voicemail, didn't speak with him. But anyway, so assuming it's just us, we'll go ahead and get started. And I did not email, sorry for not emailing an agenda, but
hello, sorry.
Oh, there's Connor, yay. So, okay. So let me go pull up what I have for an agenda and we'll go through it. And it's mostly giving everybody updates. Let me share. Should I say how everybody's doing? How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. Okay. I'm thinking before I jump into business, that might be a nice thing to ask. So I'll actually go through the agenda, but then I'll ask you to approve it, but I'm kind of going to go through because I have all the facts and details in here, which is not the normal way to do it, but it helps me keep the notes together. So I did want to keep everybody up to date. And first of all, let me just mention that we did amazingly start on time. So the Housing Oversight Task Force, I've got, and I'll send this to everybody. Well, the minutes will look a lot like this. Let's put it that way. So the status of the Housing Oversight Task Force, it did get given to the town board April 18th. I gave the link to you all on April 21st. I do know that Jude and Ed and David gave some feedback on May 3rd, which got received by the Zoning Revision Committee, and really primarily Kirk Ritchie and Deborah Dewan are bringing information in. There was a community information session that I talked about. I'm very sure I talked about it before, but on May 30th, it did happen at the community center. We are still in the public comment period. Some people say, oh, you're trying to rush this law through. There is no public hearing date set because we're still getting feedback in. We did get a county response received, and they did compliment Woodstock and say Woodstock is a role model, but they wanted us to focus on either limiting or eliminating STRs in new ADUs for sure, but we need to have a Housing Oversight Task Force meeting. But I've shared my thought. I don't know how you all feel about this, but I've shared my thought that perhaps you want to phase out STRs and ADUs altogether, except for owner occupied, because I want to support anybody who owns a home and they want this rental because it's going to help them pay their taxes and help them be financially solvent. I would like to help people who do that. And I also, from my own experience as a landlord, I fully understand when people say long-term rentals, it's become a problem as a landlord. It truly has, because the laws are so in favor of the tenant that you can have a tenant who's just horrible and destructive and the last thing that you would want on your property, and yet you can't always remove them. So the new laws have made it very hard to, so I certainly understand why people have hesitance, but certainly no more than one STR per property owner. And if you had one in an ADU, I think it's okay to have one as long as it's owner occupied. That's my personal opinion. So I've kind of shared that. I don't know if anybody has alternative opinions on that, but
I think when the time comes that we do give a serious look to the STR reform and this committee, the first play, and Jeff hopefully will be joining us soon. He couldn't find the email, so I replied and tagged him in it.
Oh, nice.
I imagine I don't want to speak on his behalf or anything, but I imagine if he were here, he would remind us that there's a lot of really good template example of this and the Hurley code right now. So I actually have that pulled up on my phone, but I can send maybe the link out or just tell you how to get there. But it's their law is it's section 210-33 of the Hurley Town Code, of their supplementary code rather, 210-33. And hey, Jeff, I was just saying that if you were here, you would remind us about the Hurley code, looking at that for our STR. They have, I know they make mention in it, one STR per property, very specifically geared towards only owner occupied. Non-owner occupied is very, very clearly excluded. I do think they have a great granular section on the application process and how and how it's maintained and qualified. Though some of that could be plug and play for us, depending on if we feel there's an issue with the actual application process rather than the criteria by which we apply people.
Yeah, okay. And we'll get more into the STR later on in the agenda. But so Jeff, I was just going through the Housing Oversight Task Force and what the county had said and what the focus areas are. So they were focused on limiting or eliminating STRs in all new ADUs, calculating density with number of bedrooms, not dwelling units. They think that the county thought there was some advantage to doing calculations that way. So I believe that their Nan, who is the professional that we have working, who actually wrote all these updates, is looking at what to do about that. There is some discussion about removing the affordable unit payment in lieu of option. That was a lot of feedback that came back that said, well, you got your wealthy developer, they can just pay in lieu of doing affordable housing. So what good is this? And so there is serious thought to just saying, hey, we just shouldn't put it in now. We don't have this payment in lieu of well rounded out. We don't want it to be a way that people can just go do what they want. We really, so if we can't do a payment in lieu of, and if we can't be certain it's going to be done in a responsible way, there is a serious consideration of removing that. And then there was some focus, there were some things that the county said they definitely want us to be looking at. And there were some things that was part of the conversation that I've heard, and I forget if this one came from the county or not, but that there's some affordability statements if you have fewer than 5 units and more than 40, but do we want to say more if you've got between 5 and 40 dwelling units? So I just wanted to let people know what's been discussed. And Jeff, I see your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so I was on the phone call with the county planning board, the county about their comments. So the first thing is ADUs. We agreed on the call to change and this is something that the HOTF has to confirm, but the people on the call, which was Deborah, Kirk, and myself from the HOTF, talked with the county and came up with a different structure for the ADUs. The first ADU cannot be an STR, period, ever. And those that are currently STRs will, when their STR license expires, they'll not be able to become an STR again. Second ADU can be an STR if and only if the first ADU becomes becomes an affordable long-term rental by deed. So in other words, the first ADU can never be an STR. Any existing ADUs that are STRs will be able to stay in STR until their license expires. I think you get a 1-year license. So when that expires, they cannot continue to be an STR. The incentive to build a second ADU as an STR is you have to have your first ADU be an affordable long-term rental. That's
Is that for both owner occupied and non-owner occupied?
yeah, ADUs are independent of owner occupied versus non-owner occupied.
All right, I love it. I absolutely love it.
And then as far as calculating density for bedrooms as far and not dwelling units. So the point that they were making there is that the number of bedrooms is a better model for density than the number of dwelling units. So for example, if you had 40 units of 3-bedroom units, that's 120 units. If you had 40 units of 1-bedroom units, that's 40 units, 40 bedrooms. So we talked about this, and basically we decided that the units, that it's hard to change the whole thing. It's hard to change from units to bedrooms conceptually. But we're going to put in something where you get bonuses if you limit the number of bedrooms. So the calculation would be on the number of bedrooms versus the number of units. It actually makes more sense. It's not something we thought about, and it's hard to get our head around it because it's something that's different than what we've actually talked about as far as units go. But it makes more sense to measure in terms of bedrooms than units, because bedrooms is a more accurate way to determine actual density within an area. There's some conversation on how to do that. Dan is working on that with the county to get her head around it, and we'll probably change density based on that. We're all pretty much the ones that the people have talked about it are all very much in favor of removing the payment and lieu options. We don't think that's really, it's not well thought out, and it's probably not a good way to go. As has been commented, it lets people that have a lot of money get away with not building affordable units. We also, the other thing that we talked about with the county is to make a mandatory number of affordable units in a major subdivision. We haven't come up with what those units are, what that number is, but the idea is if you're doing a major subdivision, 20, 30, I'm not sure what the number is going to end up being, of those units must be affordable. That can be done in a couple of different ways. One is to build affordable units as part of the major subdivision. The other way is to add affordable ADUs to the buildings, to the houses in the subdivision. This is something that's been done throughout other areas in New York, and it's actually been working pretty well. So those are the things that we talked about with the county to accommodate the required changes.
Yeah, okay. And just to go on record, I agree with everything said, except for I personally do not agree with being so strict on the first STR never being able to be, the first ADU never being able to be an STR. That's just my personal opinion. And I know I was not on the conversation with the county. I know what you all decided with the county, but I'm just putting everybody on notice that my personal opinion is that if we have a homeowner who is struggling to pay their taxes and they are owner occupied, their primary residence is on that property, I personally think it's okay for their first ADU to be an STR. So I know I may be the only person saying that. However, that I just sharing my position. So I understand what the group decided, and I was not part of that group to weigh in at the time, but I've been weighing in since then with everybody who's told me that. I've been weighing in. I weighed in with Bill because he was there. I weighed in with Kirk because he was sharing the stuff. So that's just my opinion is because I've been a landlord. I get it. When it's easy when you've never been a landlord to say, oh, just make it a long-term rental. It can be excruciating to have a long-term renter and have a problem and have the state laws not support you dealing with your problem, and sometimes your problem is a safety issue. You may have somebody violent, you may have somebody, and they say, well, they gotta have a place to live too. Well, so I have a set of experiences different from different people because I have been a landlord, and so anyway, I have a strong feeling on that. Go ahead, Jude.
Sorry.
Well, Jude had a hand up.
Couple of things. The first thing is in regards to what you're saying, Laura, that's sort of counter to the whole idea of creating long-term rentals and affordable rentals in the town. That's all I'm going to say. And, it's not that I don't have sympathy for what you're saying, but if you're taking that approach, then why would anybody want to have an affordable unit? But what I wanted to go back and really talk about was the county. I'm really not quite clear. When I was on the planning board, we would receive recommendations from the county planning board. We would, as a planning board, and my understanding is, as a town board, you either accept those recommendations or you decide not to accept them, and it requires a vote of a majority plus one. So now I'm not exactly sure what this negotiation was. We have a draft law before the town planning board, and the county planning board has made a recommendation. It seems that that recommendation is there, and it's up to the town to decide whether or not they want to accept and adopt those recommendations. So I'm not sure what this phone call was. I did speak to someone at the planning board, and they said they had spoken to someone in the town, and it was about clarification. But I'm not quite clear on what you're saying, Jeff. Are you saying that the normal process is not being followed?
No, well, let
I'm
me
not saying
jump
that
in.
at all. Let me she asked me a question. Let me answer the
Okay,
question.
all right.
The process is being followed. They have 3 required changes.
I've seen the law. I've seen their letter.
I know you have. So they have those 3 required changes. We had a phone call to understand what they wanted from those required changes. We now understand what they want from those required changes. We're accepting those required changes so that we can have, yes.
The town board has?
So far, we have not, HOTF has not officially met since then, but the intention is to accept the required changes.
Yeah, my understanding, if you accept the changes, you don't need the town board to vote.
No, so what the difference with accepting the changes, if you accept the changes from the town, as Jude said, if you accept the changes from the county planning board, you need a simple majority to pass. If you do not accept the required changes, you need a majority plus 1 to pass.
Okay, so what you're saying is it was just a clarification and how you would go about
Accepting it.
Okay,
Correct.
I just wasn't clear about that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So okay, so that was a good conversation, and so we know what the group decided. You know my opinion. I heard you, Jude, when you said, well, it doesn't really. I think that this overall, there are so many things in the law that I believe do help affordable housing, because STRs are not allowed at all. If you have the duplex or the the threeplex or the fourplex, there are different building styles that don't allow STRs at all. So there's a bunch. There's a lot in there that I think does help. And again, if you have the second ADU, we still have an STR law that says you can only have one STR on a property, with the property owner. So if they want to do a second ADU, that would be long-term rental. But I am sensitive to people that are struggling. But again, as you heard Jeff say, that group, which I wasn't part of, but that group agreed with the county, and I still do have my opinion. But we'll see where that goes.
We'll have a meeting with a full HOTF to go over that. I mean, the bottom line is, if we do not agree with the county, if we try to go against the county's required change in the STRs, we need a 4 out of 5 vote to the town board.
Well, I will say I spoke with Kirk, and Kirk's understanding of the meeting you all had was that tweaks were allowed. So because what I said to Kirk is, I think what we ought to do is we ought to say that maybe a 3-year plan that says within 3 years, you can't have any ADU be an STR, well, you can't have any ADU be an STR unless you have owner occupied. So I was kind of offering something that would help the cause, because owner occupied is okay. So, and Kirk came away with the meeting believing that you might be able to have tweaks with what the county asked for, because the town understands the intention of what the county asked for, and that tweaks could be allowed without going back to the county. But in any event, we'll take that into Housing Oversight Task Force. But we'll see. And I'm only 1 vote. Housing Oversight Task Force, I think, is run very well. I'm only 1 vote. Majority always rules. I could be the only one saying that. So it could be a moot point, because it could be, if it's just me, then I get outvoted, and that'll be the end of that.
Will those meetings take place in public?
They do not.
Is there any reason why they can't in the future, given that this is a law before the town now?
It's Kirk Ritchie and Deborah Dewan are the co-chairs, and I defer to them. They've made the decision that the concern all along has been that as the Housing Oversight Task Force brainstorms ideas that could be off the wall, could be this, could be that, that what's important to the community is what we ended up with as a decision. And that if people are hearing the brainstorming or discussion, and he said, she said, that it can be, you know, a single line. And believe me, I'll tell you, my experience, I don't want to, well, the campaign, I'm going to tell you, just because it is relevant, is in the campaign trail. I have experienced little nuggets of truth get blown out of proportion, twisted into what's no longer truth, and yet bandied about as though it's truth. And all of a sudden you're running down trying to do damage control. And that is the current environment that I am living in at this moment in time. So I certainly would agree that it makes sense for the Housing Oversight Task Force to continue the policy that says the meetings are closed. We share with the community the decision, not how we got there, because things have gotten way out of hand in terms of things being twisted around and hitting the press and this and that, and it takes the eye off the ball. So if Kirk and Deborah continue to say, let's keep on making them private meetings, believe me, what I've experienced over these past couple of months, I'm totally with them, because yeah, we're in a very odd time right now, just saying. So, okay, I see Ed talking, but you're on mute. I didn't know if you're adding to the conversation, Ed.
Still muted. There you
Yes, okay. Well, I would have a very long thing to say, but I will only say that this is a process that is so undemocratic and so un-Woodstock-like. It reminds me of the time when I used to lead protests against communist Czechoslovakia in tormenting musician friends of mine in the 80s and 70s. This is a neo-fascist, stupid, un-Woodstock disgrace that's been going on. And you're inviting, you know, I don't know, full page ads, whatever it takes to point out to the public the neo-fascist scam that's being promoted. And we found boners in this 309 page, really obvious, stupid boners. Who's writing this stuff?
Well, Nan is
and
actually,
if I'd like to interject too, because you know we can keep going like this, and I gotta say I'm gonna say a couple things that I don't think conflict. I really do believe, and I want to believe, that everyone is trying to row in the same direction, and no one is going into this with corrupt intent. However, Laura, that is to your point. But to counter your point, the absence of that information, which could be, as you say, misconstrued, in my opinion, leaves just as much to be misconstrued. The vacuum of information is going to get filled with something, whether it's a rumor or a leaked bit of where you guys have come and everyone wants to know how and why. And I'm not saying that you guys should feel the need to answer every email you get about every audit of every video that gets posted, or not in this case of the board. I just want to say that, like, as much as I do have, an earthly amount of faith and confidence as I do in my fellow volunteers and human beings, not doing it is going to achieve the same results ultimately of what you're saying you want to avoid.
but everybody is seeing the outcome, and I hear you that you'd like to see how we got there. But the thing about it is, the outcome, I'm not sure why it matters so much how we got there, because when we have
I can give you one.
Christ.
I can give you one good reason. I think one good reason, which is that when Ed expresses his understandable frustration at some of the things that were included in a law that has been worked on for, in my opinion, much longer than it has to be on an issue that is really as dire as this one is, it begs questions of competency and direction and focus that if it were a more open process and if more feedback were coming in, critical or otherwise, might expedite the process of getting to a place that we all that I still do believe we all want to get to.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll share with Kirk and Deborah the opinions. Go ahead, Jude.
You know, this also brings to mind the conversation we had at our April 10th meeting, Laura, which I've never seen posted, and I understand there were some privacy issues that needed to be resolved. But we talked at that point, and I did ask that the Zoning Revision Committee be allowed to look at these proposals, and was told that that was not part of the plan. I did see a housing committee meeting, because they do post their meetings. I mean, everybody else has open meetings, the housing committee, you know, the town board.
Oh, well, we do for that matter.
everybody-
Anyone could come here, right?
Wait. And I don't understand. I'm going to say the housing committee was given a preview of this law before the town board got it. And I'm just like, I don't understand why the ZRC has been left out of this. It does raise a lot of questions, and we do have open government in the state, and deliberations are part of it. And we understand that, you know, so where were there disagreements? Did everybody think this was a great idea? How did you come to the conclusions that you came to? Maybe if we knew what the process was, it would make more sense to us. But at this point, you just sort of put out all of these things that people are looking at and going, it doesn't make sense for Woodstock. But we've been denied access to any of the process. And I don't think that should continue now, because now it is a law before the town board. It's no longer something that the committee is wanting to give the big reveal. It's out there. So any discussions about modifying it, like if you are accepting input, you know, there has been criticism, a lot of criticism about the fee in lieu. So if there's a discussion about that, why wouldn't that be public? Why don't we get to know how you come to your conclusions? The other thing that really disturbs me is that it is now a law before the town board.
Mm-hmm.
So when remarks are sent, they are for the town board to consider. It doesn't go back to the HOTF to decide whether or not they want to include it in the package. It's now in the town board's hands. You are elected, you are a legislative body, it's in your hands. It's no longer something that's in a committee. And so it bothers me that somehow it goes back to the HOTF, they have their secret meeting, and then we find out what they decided. It's not really what they decide anymore. It's what the town board decides. And if you want to get recommendations from them, that's fine, but it's up to the town board. And if they're meeting as a committee, like every other committee, with the exception of the ethics committee, which has private deliberations, it should be public. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, I will. So yes, I will share your concerns with Kirk and Deborah. Jeff, I'll hear what you have to say.
And Bill, and Reggie, and Maria Elena, and Bennett, please.
What Jeff? Go ahead, Jeff.
Everybody on the town board, not just the HOTF. It shouldn't be up to them. They're a committee under the town board, right?
Well, that's correct.
Thank you.
So Jeff, what's your thoughts? Oh, there you go.
So first of all, this is a public comment period. The public we received comments. We received comments from the Ulster County Planning Board. We're modifying. The intention is to modify based on those comments. We received comments. We will receive comments from the Woodstock Planning Board sometime in the future. We receive comments from the Zoning Board of Appeals in the future. There may be changes made on that. If any of you have specific comments you make, other than that it's a neo-fascist law, something that's actually constructive and saying you should change it from this to this, please make those comments. We're looking for comments. We're asking for comments. Okay, we're not attempting to be neo-fascist. We put together something that we thought was a decent set of laws. If you do not agree with them, make those specific comments instead of generic comments like, we hate this, it doesn't work, it's not Woodstock. If you have very specific comments, please let us know what those comments are, how to make it better. No one's trying to push this through in a neo-fascist way. And it offends me to have people say that it is that way, because it's
That's
not.
what I feel.
We've gone through 2 years of public comments and public feedback. And
Give me a
we've
break.
had public comments, we've had public feedback, we've made changes.
That's
As you see
bullshit.
here, we've taken comments from the Ulster County Planning Board, we're making changes to make the law better. Ed, if you have ways to make this law better, please suggest it. If you have ways to improve it, please suggest it. Same thing with you, Jude, and same thing with Connor.
The zoning,
make it better.
the zoning board of appeals did send, I think, an 8 or 9 page letter to
Right.
the town board. Once again, to the town board. It is up to them.
I understand that, and the town board is asking for the people who have worked on it to help them understand what those mean and how to accommodate those letters, how to accommodate those comments.
That's wonderful. Please do it in public.
I have no problem doing it in public. I have no problem doing it in public. It's not up to me, though. I'm not in charge of the committee.
Look, just to bring this back again, to address you directly, Jeff, I
Yeah.
don't feel that you are trying to be duplicitous or, behind the veil at all. I'm sure that, I'm not sure of anything, but that being said, I do believe that everyone wants to row in the same direction. It just my point in this thing is that level of opaqueness just gives ammunition to what could be, I think, a more productive use of the discourse. Now, if I could just for 1 second, would you, oh wait, no, there it is. It's still up. I have a couple of questions. I see that most of what was addressed in the letter that was sent is listed here in the agenda as points to look into. But there's one question I had that doesn't seem to have been addressed. I talked to Urena about it and didn't get really a full answer. I'd like to actually meet with Deborah soon. My schedule has just settled down enough that I might actually be able to meet her for lunch or something.
She's in Italy for 5 weeks.
Never mind. So I'm gonna try to I'm going to try to meet with someone to answer these questions, but they are about the threshold for affordability. Now, there was some vernacular and some numbers tossed around that I didn't find too encouraging.
So first of all, Connor, you're correct. There was a significant typo in the law.
Okay, I never got that message. Please tell me about it, because I've
Okay.
been waiting to hear back from at least 2 people that I haven't.
So my understanding about the affordability is we're using a county instead of a town, a county median income as the basic measure, okay?
It should be about 30,000.
It's 50, it's over 50.
It's over 50. Yeah, the median incomes are around
For
50.
a single person.
Right.
Okay.
So we're using a county for the median income instead of the Woodstock, because we want to go with, we expect the county to be lower.
Yeah.
Right, that's why we're doing it. We want to be able to, and then of the median income, the affordability is 30% of median income should go to housing. No more than 30% of should go to housing. That's what affordable is. So if
And-
you do 30%,
I'm
What?
sorry, can you repeat that last bit? It broke up. The what
So, yeah.
percent?
so we're taking the median county income. Of that median income, 30% of that median income should go to housing. That determines whether it's affordable or not.
Now, and here's my question also. So the threshold that I think was kicked around was 80 to 120% of that median income.
Right, in that we need to, I don't know if that's a weird number, like what does it really mean? It should be a specific number. I don't know why it's 80 to 120. We can look at that.
I mean, well, here's the thing. Now you guys said 50. I don't know if you can see this, but is that backwards?
Well, I see 32345 US dollars 2020.
That
What is
is
that number?
$32,345 as of 2020 being the average median income. Now, all I want to say is I know I'm sure there's other factors in this, but taking, for example, like I fall somewhere closer to that $50,000 range. Like I'm not like, I'm like most of my generation. I can do a lot of different things, and making money is tougher. Is not something that is comes as easily. And I just want to say, like, when I look at like a lot of like families in this town, that of people who are like, I keep hearing like floating around out there looking for a place, 30 to 50 feels like a demographic in need. And that's all I kind of wanted to say to that, because when I saw the numbers being 50 to 80,000, I think it was, for a single filer. I mean, I just got to ask, like, why, if that's going to be the threshold, why is it going to be the threshold?
No, it's the threshold, Connor, is a percentage of median income of the county median income.
Sure, no, sure.
30% of
So
the
if
county
we
median
take,
income. And we don't decide what the median income is. It is what it is.
no, I get that.
Right.
Here's my point: is if I take 30% of 32,000.
Right.
$145 times 0.3, I'm going to get about $9,700. That's
Yep.
under $1,000 a month. That,
Yep.
that strikes me as affordable.
Yep.
And if I look at the numbers that were put out again, maybe it becomes more affordable in that realm, 50,000, 80,000 divided by 30%. I just wonder if that median is, if we have to choose median, or if perhaps rather than an 80 to 120% threshold, it could be, say, a 60 to 100% threshold.
I think we're going to settle. So the definition of affordable that's a U.S. That's a definition that we don't decide.
Okay.
We don't decide the 30%. The 30% is decided by the,
That I understand as like, that's the goal of what we want the total amount they spend in a year
on
of
housing.
that
Correct.
makes sense to me. What
And
I'm saying is just the amount that they make being if we agree that it's the median, if it has to be a targeted number around the median, I would rather see it go lower towards like 60 to 100% rather than 80 to 120. I don't see why that is.
I mean, to me, I don't know why it's not, and again, I don't know where the 80 to 120 came from. I don't remember that conversation that we had when we did this. To me, it should just be the median, 100% period. 100% of the median, so 30% of the median. And there's no,
Could be what you spend.
yeah, I mean, that because that would give you, as you did the calculation, that would give you a total rent for the year of around $10,000, give or take,
Yes.
which that's affordable.
Yes, if we're talking about, for me, what I just looked up at, that roughly $32,000 realm.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, Jude.
No, that's okay.
Rattled.
I'm glad we're having this discussion. So basically what it is that HUD comes out with tables every year. And for 2022, the 80% to 120% of the area median income, it is not the average, it is the median that HUD uses. And by the way, if you were to use Woodstock's median income, it would be even higher, because they have to factor in the billionaires that we have in town. Okay, so the median income for between 80 and 120% is $53,800 and $80,700. But okay, so maybe you'd rather, I think those are considered moderate income, and then it goes lower. Some of it's low income. They have an actual chart which I can send to you if you want, Connor.
I would love that. Thank you.
So the thing that bothers me the most about this is okay, that's fine. In eligibility, in the section on eligibility in this draft law, it says that, that that people would make between 80 and 120%. The part that bothers me the most is that when it talks about affordable rent, okay? Now we're not talking about eligibility because, you can debate that. We're talking about rent. And what it says for rent, and by the way, also for purchasing, is between 80 and 120%. That's what it says in the law that is before the town board right now. So you know what those numbers come out to are $4,483 for 80% and $6,725 a month. That is what's in the law. Excuse me, Jeff, I'm talking.
I'm just saying it's a typo.
It's not a typo. That's
It's
like
a stupid.
It's a typo.
Jeff.
This law is so cumbersome and badly written that it took a member of the zoning revision committee to find this stupid boner you allowed in this law presented to the town board and the county planning board. Who fact checks this 309-page?
That's what the public comment period is for, Ed. It's a typo. We're not doing 80% of median income. Trust me, we're not doing that. That's not the definition.
And can we
No.
just,
Jeff, that's what you put in the law.
I know it's a typo. Do you understand typos, Jude?
Excuse me, Jeff, I'm still pleased.
Why is there a typo?
Because
Good
there's a typo.
God.
Someone made a mistake. It
No,
happens. It'll get
Right.
fixed.
What
Yeah.
are you all stupid?
Yes, we are, Ed. We're all stupid. We're all dumb,
Yeah.
ignorant people who
Yeah.
don't know how to type. Come on, Ed. Just be obnoxious. Jesus.
May I please?
Well, yeah, hang on. So I'm going to take control again. We're going to go to Jude and then, but I understand people feel strongly about this. So Jude, why don't you finish up? But I think that I think a lot's been said. I appreciate everybody being passionate about it. I appreciate everybody's comments, but I think so say, Jude, say what you're going to say, and then we probably want to move on.
All right. So this is what I'd like to say. I know you say it's a typo, but there it is. It's a whole paragraph. It appears in two different places, in the sales numbers and the rent numbers. You had a professional planner working on this document. When you brought it to the town, you said, here is our law. Please adopt it. Now, when I asked,
No.
well,
Okay,
no,
No,
wait,
let
no,
you finish. Let you finish.
Keep
I
talking.
said, may I finish?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you brought it to the town and you said, here's this wonderful law. We have this professional planner. We've been working on this. Here it is. Please adopt it. Adopt it as a draft law. And I know there were a couple people on the town board. I watched the meeting. They said, well, we haven't even seen it. And they're like, oh no, it's okay. We have time to read it. I asked if the zoning revision committee could have a look at this law, and I was shut down because you guys had control of it and it was going to be presented the way it was going to be presented. If I don't see this, I do see it as a mistake. I do. It has to be because it's ridiculous, but I don't see it as a typo. I think it was a careless mistake. And what concerns me is what other careless mistakes are in this law. And that's all I'll say for now, Laura, thank you.
Okay, so I do want to say a couple things. One is the Housing Oversight Task Force never said, they said here is the law. They never said, please adopt it as is. The public comment period is going on for a while. And I understand the frustration that there was a typo. How did it happen? This law was a lot of work, and that's not, there's no good excuse for a typo, but I will say the law was a lot of work. It is what it is, but I'm glad it's caught because it'll get corrected. So in any event, the ZRC, three ZRC members, because Jude, you're one of them, did make a statement on the law. And there has been no public hearing set. The ZRC, if people in the ZRC want to still go off and, the ZRC is not being asked, the process is not asking each committee for a comment at this point in time, but that's not to say the ZRC can't make a comment. So, the three members of the ZRC already did make a comment. You can certainly keep commenting. We're in a public hearing. We're in a public comment session. We haven't even started the public hearing yet. Nobody is ramming this law through. And the Housing Oversight Task Force never said, please adopt it as is. They said, here's what we've got now. That's what they've said. Here's what we've got now. And it was reviewed a lot. The law came out about a year ago. Version 1 came out, and people had a whole year to give feedback. And the Housing Oversight Task Force spent almost a whole year taking everybody's input and saying, okay, what should we change based on people's input? And changes were made. And we're already talking about changes because there's so much feedback on that in lieu of thing. There's still going to be changes. So nobody is saying slam dunk, jam it down your throat. This is, but just what Jeff said before, if you have something specific, say so. If you have a specific, like this paragraph is a typo, yeah, that's specific and people will be jumping on that. If you have other specific stuff, please give specifics. I believe overall Nan did an excellent job. Is there a mistake in a 300-page law? Yes, there is. Will it get, is it found before it became law? Yeah, it's being found. And this law is still, there's still changes going to be made based on feedback like that. Like this in lieu of really is not helpful. This typo is urgent to fix it. Everybody's still listening. And I understand, Jude, your point. Officially, this is with the town board, but the Housing Oversight Task Force really knows it best. And so if something's going to get corrected, in my opinion, it does make sense to ask the Housing Oversight Task Force and say, hey, we got these pieces of input. What do you think? Because they really have embodied this law and have lived the law. And so I'm okay. I'm okay that the Housing Oversight Task Force is being asked to give first consideration to things like the planning board input. And, as you say, you've seen it, so you're giving input too. There's a lot of conversation. And that's why I wanted to bring it up on this call, is I want us all to be open about it. So the communication is happening. I know you've pointed out some imperfections, but the communication is happening. So it's a process. I know that probably didn't make you feel any better, but anyway, that's all I want to say about that.
If I'm sorry, I don't mean to just jump in again. It's just, I think I completely understand why people feel the way they do. It's just, like I said, I have the understanding that you guys are not bringing this before to be passed, but I also have the understanding that with the optics that have sort of predicated this conversation, it can look quite the other way. Now, I don't know that I've said it to everyone, but I'll say it again. Like, I don't want to be Mr. Kumbaya, but like, we're a good team on this board. Everyone here does a really good job of bringing some expertise to these issues. And I don't want to see this turn into the library debacle where everyone's at each other's throats, over a bunch of either misunderstandings or what fans out to be arguments of arguments. So,
right.
If this were, I'll just say, if this had gone to the board and they had voted it through, I'd be in the streets. Hopefully a lot of other people would be too.
Yeah, there you go.
But, while I understand the clarification you're making about typo and mistake, Jude, I really, really do. I also will, it's not a matter of I find anybody to be incompetent or anything. The scenic overlay law had maybe a typo or things that could be buttoned up and stuff like that. But I think if there is confusion, and now to your points again, because I do, Jeff, believe that you guys are working on this in all good faith and confidence. But I just want to say that moving forward, it would definitely be really duly and well considered that I think a lot of the tension out of this was born out of the opaqueness of the process, and that if there's confusion about what phase we're at, this whole thing could probably be more open. That's not a reflection on you. That's just what I would say to that.
Yeah. Okay. And Jeff, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the process from here, and I'm not sure how much. This is not going to get passed for months, literally months. And the process is, I'm not going to say whether or not I agree or disagree. I think that if it had been open meetings, it would have been maybe more interesting. I don't know how it would have worked or not. I really don't know. I don't have a problem with open meetings. One thing that I learned with the library is to be as open as possible and to try to get people to hear what you're saying. And that might have been a mistake to have it be a task force and not be open. I'm not saying that was the right way to go, but that's where we are. And where we are is we we mean Housing Oversight Task Force, gave the town board a draft. So this is a draft that we have as of now, based on the feedback that we received from the first draft and some other changes that we made. It's still a draft. It's still something that should be reviewed. It has to be reviewed by the county, by the town committees. I know that the last time we talked here, I was not in favor of reviewing it by the ZRC. Jude, you convinced me I was wrong. We should have reviewed it. Okay, I do listen to you. And yeah, and that part of it is what we're trying to do now. And we're finding mistakes. We're finding areas to improve it. I think that the law itself makes a lot of significant changes and advancements in our ability to have affordable housing in Woodstock. Is there things that can be improved? Yeah, we've got 4 of them on the screen here. You know, the changing of the ADUs. That was an improvement that the county recommended, and we're taking it. The understanding of calculating density based on bedrooms versus dwelling. That's a huge improvement, which we're gonna take. You know, 40 units of 3 bedrooms is way more dense than 40 units of 1 bedroom. And we need to understand that those differences should be understood and put in the code. The payment in lieu, that kind of snuck by us, I think, for me personally. I think it was I mean, looking at it now, it's like, what a stupid idea that is. Okay, so yeah, those things got in the code. You know, I think that we just, because we've always had payment in lieu, so we thought, well, we'll do this, but thinking about it in this way, it's a bad idea. The fact that there was nothing put in the major subdivisions about affordability, that was a mistake. That was an area that the county pointed out to us. So we want to change that too. So it's not like we're done. It's where this is part of the process of going through review and finding those specific things that we screwed up in or that could be improved. And that's where we're at. And that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for improvements, for feedback, for how do we make this, you know, what we need it to be for the town. All of us want the same thing, right? That's the bottom line. All of us want the same thing. We want our town to be a place where families live, where young families live, where we have children again that can actually populate our elementary school and keep it open. That's what we want. We want that same thing. None of us want STRs, frankly. I mean,
So,
none of us do. You know,
I mean, and again, I don't want this to be some sort of, you know, I don't want this to come off as like questioning of you or anyone's intentions. I feel better after this big talk we have. I really do.
and I get that. I just want to make sure, you know,
I think the thing to do, you know, would make it like I think me, Ed, Dave, Jude should feel, you know, not any less emboldened, only more now to share the additional feedback. I'd love for us to formally add a 5th bullet to that, just to say, like, even though we're addressing the typo of 80 versus 30%, which I completely understand, we put that aside. I would like to have that threshold of around median income just looked at, examined, and explained. You know,
I mean, I don't understand the 80 versus 120 either, Connor. I really don't. To me,
yeah,
it should
no,
be based on the
no,
median income
I'm
period.
not saying you do it right now. I'm just saying let's add that to the list, because this is the time, right?
No, and I'm agreeing with you. We need to
Awesome.
examine it. I'm agreeing with that entirely.
And I know, Laura, and again, you may feel differently, but if I'd be willing, as the part of the ZRC, if we send that in as a question, to also just suggest, as a board, that the HOTF open up their meetings. And because the thing, I mean, I am one person who really does believe there's just, you know, 2 heads are better than 1, 3, etc. I mean, you know, you can be discerning about obviously what feedback is helpful, and I don't think anyone's going to start getting harassed any more than we normally are, maybe over, you know, what happens in those meetings, especially at this phase. This feels like a really opportune time to do that. So I'd be willing to, you know, make some sort of motion or whatever to recommend that as a board to the other board and to the HOTF.
I second that motion.
Okay, the ZRC wants to suggest that HADF now have open meetings.
Yes.
Now,
So,
that does-
so,
that
so
doesn't
Connor,
mean- that
so
doesn't-
Connor, hang on, let me get my notes here. So Connor made the motion, Jude seconded it. Do we want to discuss that motion?
Yeah, if that's okay, I'd like to make a discussion. I think that it was appropriate for us to have private meetings when we're throwing spaghetti on the wall, essentially, and seeing what stuck. Okay, we talked about a lot of weird, different ideas, some of which were crazy. But now that we're here at this point, I think it's appropriate to go through it, in public and explain different parts of it. And we've tried to explain it, but it's a lot to explain. It's a lot to explain, and I don't have any issue doing it in public anymore at this point. Like,
That's
you know,
great.
personally, I don't have a problem. Personally, I would love to do it because I do think we need to make sure that we as a town understand this enough to say, yes, this is a good thing.
Jeff, or to say, I want to address you personally.
Mhm.
I read through this law several times. Most people are not going to do that. And what it felt like to me was that what Deborah and Kirk presented to the town omitted a lot of details that are concerning. And so it's been very one-dimensional. It's been this, this is this great thing and it's going to do this. It hasn't really explored a lot of what's in the law and a lot of what the details. They have presented what they wanted everybody to hear. So not everybody's going to read through that law. If you had given me an opportunity a month ago, I could have pointed out to you certainly about that affordability section that flew off the page when I saw it. All of the fee in lieu, because I was on the planning board, I know what happened with that money or what didn't happen with that money. I mean, all of those things that, there are people who have worked in this town. I mean, and I'm just going to say, Ed has been involved in zoning in this town for what, like 40 years now? If anybody knows some of the pitfalls and how to write a law that people can understand, but you know what? All of us, I was on the planning board, Connor's was on the planning board, Laura was on the committee, but there are a lot of people who could have been helpful in this, but were shut out. So in terms of this discussion, yes, my absolute yes, please send that recommendation to the town board, not to the HOTF. That is something the town board can tell them to do. The HOTF wants to voluntarily do it. That's great. If they don't, I don't really care. The town board should direct them to open and record their meetings just like every other committee and board in this town. So shall we?
Okay, so let me just, I'm a note taker. Hang on a sec. So open and record meetings. Okay, so Connor, you made the original motion. I think Jude is recommending a change to it because Connor, as I heard your motion, it was have the Housing Oversight Task Force for me to, as the chair of the ZRC, communicate the Housing Oversight Task Force. We would like the meetings open. Jude is saying, ask the town board to make it open.
Well,
So Connor, you made the original recommendation.
I'd certainly like to hear what, I'm sorry about that. I'd certainly like to hear what Ed has to say, but I think I'm probably going to go with Jude and say, let's amend my original motion to send this letter to the town board. I'd like to jointly send it. Honestly, I don't want it to, it may be a little, finicky, but, with the way things, when no one talks, when with the STR committee and stuff, I don't want people to feel like they're not being addressed or they're just being talked by or through. We're all people here. We should take care of each other. I know it's whatever, but we have to work together, and being kind about these things it's not a personal thing or us saying that you've done anything wrong. Cause I agree. I understand Laura and Jeff's perspective in saying, y'all were trying to get a little weird with it and brainstorm, and the fact that you're willing to come out now and again work from here, that would, I think, do the discourse a world of good.
Okay,
so
I'm gonna repeat the motion as I have it now. Is the ZRC suggests the town board make the Housing Oversight Task Force now open up meetings and record them. So that's what I understand that the motion is.
How about require?
Yeah,
The town board require a pleasanter word.
Yes.
Okay, that the town board require, okay, the ZRC suggests that the town board require the Housing Oversight Task Force now open up meetings and record them. That's the
All-
motion.
Post them on YouTube. Go ahead, Ed.
And
All
record
meeting, all meetings.
and record all meetings and post on YouTube. Okay, so that is the motion on the table.
yeah.
So, I mean, I would have preferred to send it to the Housing Oversight Task Force and see what they say, rather than try to bring the big stick and say, make the town board tell them. But anyway, so again, I'm going to reread the motion. Zoning Revision Committee suggests that the town board require Housing Oversight Task Force now open up meetings and record all meetings and post on YouTube.
In the-
Record all meetings.
I wrote all. Did I write all? I wrote all in my notes. All meetings.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jude, you were going to say something.
In the interest of open government.
In the interest of open government. In the interest of open government. Okay. I'm going to read it again. Okay. The motion we're going to vote on. The Zoning Revision Committee suggests that the town board require the Housing Oversight Task Force now open up all meetings. I'll put the word there. Open up all meetings and record all meetings, post them on YouTube in the interest of open government.
Yeah.
That's
So,
that's the motion that Connor made, even though it
And-
didn't
and-
start out that way.
well, I mean, that's we're minor amendment, but Jude, since it's your amendment, I assume I still have your second.
Second,
Yeah, okay.
my own amendment.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, I'm kind of abstaining. All right, all right, anyway, motion carried. That's all we need to know.
I think, Laura, honestly, I think you should vote, and I think you should say yes for your own.
Well,
your own safety.
so I guess I like to, I hate using a big stick when you can communicate and persuade. And my preference would have been to talk with Kirk and Deborah, as opposed to the big stick. That would have been my preference, was to, I agree with what you're saying. And I also agree with the idea that says, well, here we are now, we've done this 2 years worth of deep dive work. And so we've got it. Now we're talking about a smaller number of things that are being addressed. So I think it won't waylay the whole project, which it could have for the last 2 years. But so I do understand that. But in any event, the motion carried. So all the minutes are going to say is that the motion carried. And I agree with the idea. I'm just feeling funny about the big stick, and we're going to make people do things without talking to them first and saying, hey, how do you feel about this? We're just going to say we're going to give a big stick.
Well,
So,
I
in any
mean,
event-
it's not our decision, but I would also say, and again, I called them outside of my capacity as a board member to kind of smooth things over, but it's kind of what happened with the STR committee too. We want to be 100% honest. I mean, somebody decided that, they needed to turn their work over, and they didn't hear about it, and they did get a little offended. But it's been done before, and while I'm totally sympathetic to what you're saying, because I've been saying this whole time, let's take care of each other. I think what, and I mean, this is essentially sugarcoating the request, because it is a request for them to open the books, but to say, like, we appreciate, the work that's been put in by the board. And at this point, as we begin to work on this shared document, it's time for everyone to come to that table. There's no,
Right.
I mean, it's really, Laura, I think the vote is whether you think there's sense in, it's not about whether we're being nice to each other. Is like, is there sense in having the main group that kind of pivots the direction of this law not have to answer to anyone until they've already expended a ton of time and resource working on something.
Well,
and I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm saying that I don't want to wait another year. I don't want them to get this feedback, decide how they interpret it behind, you know, a veil,
Mhm.
whether or not it's ill-intended, which I don't think it is. That is not
Mhm.
any bit of what I'm implying here. But I don't want to find out in a few months that what their interpretation of what seem to be clear comments are. Like, this should start to be a more
Yeah, it's more open. So, okay, all right. So I think we're good. Well, the motion, clearly the motion carried. Clearly the motion carried, so I'm proceeding with it. Okay, I do want to move on because we've been an hour already, and we definitely want to finish within an hour and a half because that's just what we like to do. So I do want to move on with other topics in the agenda. The zoning revision committee is expecting to keep up a housekeeping items. What the Housing Oversight Task Force, as part of the work, as all the feedback came in, they're building 2 lists to delegate to other areas. One is there are things that are not zoning. There's a non-zoning list that is housing, that they're looking to give that list to the housing committee. So Housing Oversight Task Force was focused on zoning law updates specific to housing. They had a specific focus, but some of the feedback came in to say, well, we ought to do this, that, and the other thing. Those things that are not zoning law, they do plan to give over to the housing committee. Those things that are zoning law, but aren't necessary today to meet this mission that we have, they're going to give to us, the zoning revision committee, and they're calling it housekeeping. For example, sprinkled through the law, there's definitions in this chapter and definitions in that chapter or section or whatever. And like one example of housekeeping is, it would be great to put all the definitions in one place. So we're going to get a housekeeping list that's going to have zoning recommendations that were not specific to the housing focus that we had, but as feedback came in and the Housing Oversight Task Force says, what do we do with each piece of feedback? Some things got fed into the law that Housing Oversight Task Force worked on. Other things went on one of these 2 lists. Well, it's housing, but it's not zoning, so housing committee ought to get it. And it's housekeeping. It's not specific to this, but consolidating definitions, and is like an example of that. So just a heads up that we will very likely receive a housekeeping to-do list, and we'll probably get it in early July. The reason why I've set the next couple of meetings for just the first, instead of meeting the 2nd and the 4th Monday as is our regular schedule, I kind of have a summer schedule that says we're just meeting the first the first meeting of the month, which is the 2nd Monday, and not the second one. Part of that is I'm going to be out of town in some cases, and part of it is, well, frankly, the 4th Monday is the day before the election, and I'm going to be busy. So in any event, if we do need to have additional meetings, we'll work it out. But if everybody's okay with the plan that for the next, well, for July and August, and this month. So June, July, and August, the plan is 1 ZRC meeting, and it's the 2nd Monday. If we're all okay with that, great. If we feel that we urgently need to get more meetings, I'll work it out, because it's my priority. The campaign is a real thing. It does consume time, but my priority is getting my job done as a town board member, and this is my job. So if it's bothersome to people that we're meeting once a month, June, July, August, let me know. If you're okay with that, that's the schedule.
I think that's fine for me. I'm wondering, are we going to get kind of start doing some information collecting during those meetings for our new issues, or what's the sort of?
Okay, well, let me keep going. And I know we never approved the agenda at the start of the meeting because I'm kind of deep diving each topic as we're talking about it. And then we'll approve it at the end. So maybe anyway, so I just want to give you status update on, wellhead and protection and telecommunications. Both are law today. They were both approved in December, but being law, when they're law, we follow them. They are law. But there's another step to get them in the online code. If you go in the online code, you won't see them yet. And the idea is that at some point we'll have figured out what's going on with the housing update that we're talking about. And the housing update will be a repeal replace, because there's so many trickle through, and somebody said, oh, you got 800 significant changes, and we don't have 800 significant changes. You may have 800 tweaks, but there are about a dozen significant changes. So in any event, but to make those changes, they filter around, and next thing you know, you change a word here and a word there, and you got like 800 different changes, but they're not all significant. About a dozen, I would say, significant. But that being said, it made more sense. There's two ways to update a law. One way is to say you have this section, repeal it and replace it with this new section. The other way is to send a list of go to this section, change this, go to that section, change that, blah, blah, blah. So the whole idea with this, and it's the two things, is the subdivision law 202 and the zoning law 260. The whole idea is it'll be repeal, replace of both sections, and the telecommunications and wellhead protection will be in what goes eventually, assuming, you know, say hypothetically speaking, the housing oversight task force law never goes in. I want to see telecommunications and wellhead go in this year. But if the housing gets to the point where people are comfortable with it, and if it can go this year, then wellhead and telecommunications will be in what is in 260, and then the repeal replace they'll carry along. So it does cost money to update the online code. So the plan is, let's coordinate these things together and get them all updated at the same time. If for some reason they weren't all going to go, if they weren't all, if the housing really is going to get hung up, then it makes sense to go do that sooner. Jude, go ahead.
Two questions. First of all, comment and a question. The first thing is, I would be in favor of going ahead and getting those in the law. They are part of the law. They should be public. People should know it's there. So the wellhead and the telecommunications law should be put in, and it might cost the town a little money, but we know that the town has a little bit of a surplus to play around with. So I really think that's important. The other thing is, did the county planning board ever respond to the scenic overlay?
No. In fact, that's the next topic here. What's happened with the scenic overlay is it was sent to the Woodstock Planning Board, who gave us very quick feedback. It was sent to the county, but there was some kind of problem with the Dropbox. The Ulster County, this is what I have here. The Ulster County Planning Board there was a Dropbox issue. So they've had the hard copy for several weeks. I don't know what's up with the Dropbox issue, but in any event.
And what's our normal turnaround period? I know, I mean,
I thought it was 45 or 60 days, but in any event, I did talk to Bill about this today. He expects we're going to see their input soon. But my point of confusion is he seemed to think they already had their meeting this month. So I would hope we see something. I would hope it got discussed in their meeting this month, because they would have had this, from what Bill says, they would have had this, the hard copy, you know, in May. So theoretically, if they've already had their meeting this month, theoretically, they could have discussed.
In the spirit of what we've been talking about this whole time, I'd like to maybe make another motion to gently tap the Ulster County Planning Board on the shoulder as a board and say, hey, don't forget about us.
You know, their agendas are posted online. We could look and see whether or not it was addressed in their June meeting. Do they meet the first something of the month? I'm not sure, but they do post their agendas.
All right, well, I'm
Okay,
gonna look it up now, and maybe I can do it before we end the meeting.
And they
Yeah,
also,
okay.
they also, you know, usually are willing to share their comments.
Well, and certainly got comments shared on other things.
Right.
So yeah, that would be great, Connor, if you're able to. So Jude, do you know what Connor should be researching? What should he search on?
I'm already on the Ulster County, NewYork.gov planning department, so now I'm just trying to find the agenda.
Okay.
Meeting or a calendar or something.
Because it'll be great if they did discuss it. Then we're just waiting for them to type up their response. And if they didn't discuss it, unhappily, we might need to wait till July.
Look and see if I can find what he sent me.
Okay. I got a couple vacancies.
Okay, let's see here.
Agendas and minutes, I got it. All right,
Okay.
we're getting there.
Good, thank you.
June 7th is the last updated referral agenda. Sopus.
It'll be at the end because it's alphabetical.
Yeah. Scenic Overlay District Standards Update. So that was on the 7th agenda.
Good.
None of these have any notes yet, and their minutes are not up, but I guess then I'll say I'm always one, it's probably from working in sales for a little bit, but I just do not mind bothering people. Like, I have
Well,
no problem sending them a note to be like, hey, did you get around to this? Because then, here's my only thing is if we're meeting once a month, I'd rather not have to do this next month. Like, let's just see if I'd say, you know what? Yeah, let's send, I'm putting it out there. Let's send a thing as saying, hey, did you get around to doing that?
Well,
Because we're only meeting once.
if it was on their agenda, they would have addressed it. They must have created some comments and they voted on it if it was on their agenda. So
Right.
I would agree with you, Connor. We should ask if they might consider expediting it. Since it was lost for the prior meeting or something. I don't know how you want to word
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would make a motion to send a letter to the Ulster County Planning Board, thanking them for making the agenda and asking if they can expedite their comments as we've been delayed for at least a few weeks now.
Mhm. Well, I mean, again, my preference would be to reach out to Dennis Doyle, who I've talked to several times, and say, hey, can you tell us when we might get this? Yeah, or maybe I'll talk to if they have a secretary, maybe I'll talk to the secretary and just find out from the secretary what the time frame is that we might get it. They probably have a secretary. So again, I hate this big stick idea. I like to communicate smoothly if that's
But
possible.
what's the stick?
Well, the stick is we're sending letters telling people what to do. Rather, it's a style thing. If I call up the Ulster County Planning Board secretary and say, hey, I know this is on your June 7th agenda. Do you know when the town will get the documented response? And find out what she says. So I'd like to just ask it as a question rather than saying, we want you to, telling them what to do. I'd like to ask the question, say, when are we going to get the response?
I think we could also cordially request an expedition. I don't think it's a matter of a stick. Again, I mean, we're all somewhat political in this body. We have to sometimes a shoe needs a horn is all I'm saying. And I don't think that's obtuse or overbearing to say, hey, we've been waiting on this. It's important to us. Just wondering if.
Well, yeah, but I think I could get the same answer. I mean, the goal is to get a response soon. And I think that the same can be accomplished if I were to call the Ulster County Planning Board secretary and say, I see it was on your agenda. Any chance you can prioritize this response? As Jude points out, it's alphabetical order. So at the bottom of the agenda, maybe they can, instead of acting on our item last, even though it was last on the agenda, maybe they could put it up. And my preference would be to call the Ulster County Planning Board secretary and just say, hey, is there any reason, we can't have the answer this week?
Well, if Jeff and Ed agree, I'll withdraw my motion. But
Oh, here, I have a suggestion. The ZRC doesn't have really the right to make a demand or request of the Ulster County Planning Board. This is the town board. So we should pass a motion to instruct Laura to contact the Ulster County Planning Board and request respectfully an expedited answer to their comments on the scenic overlay, which is a very important issue for the town, which is faced with increasing illegal cutting of our resources.
Yeah.
so that sounds like support for the motion to me. And
Well, support for the motion is his Ed, and I'm in support of Ed's motion as well. Ed's motion is the ZRC instructing me to make the communication happen.
okay, then I see. Then okay, I'm fine with that.
Me
So,
too.
so Connor, I'll still give you credit for the motion.
Oh,
I'll
it's
say
fine. I mean,
Ed,
as long as it's on the as it's on, the minutes, and that we got a trail that says like this is getting done.
Yeah.
Because I'm totally fine with meeting once a month, but let's just make sure we've got some proactivity happening in the in between.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what I have. I'm saying it's another motion, And I'm saying it as Connor made it, like I said, Ed seconded it because he adjusted it. Instruct Laura to contact the Ulster County Planning Board, request expedited answer on scenic overlay. So that's the motion. I'm happy with it and I fully accept it, but we
So
can vote on
moved.
it. But you wanted to say something.
No, I agree with it entirely. Yes, I vote for it. I just wanted to ask Laura, since we're only meeting once a month, could you communicate whatever you hear from them to us, that we don't have to wait for the next meeting?
Right, okay. Well, I'm hoping, what I really, yes, to ZRC. Okay, I'm making my notes here. So what I'm hoping, we have 2 town board meetings, as we always do. Well, sometimes we have more depending on what's going on. So we have a town board meeting tomorrow, and we have a town board meeting on the 20th. What I really want is for the public hearing to be set this month. So I think it's unlikely that we can set the public hearing tomorrow because we don't yet have the Ulster County Planning Board responses, but I'm really hoping we can set the public hearing in a week. So I really want to push and get the Ulster County Planning Board, and we can do perhaps a quickie meeting. For example, you know, if we get stuff and they want changes, maybe we can call a meeting a week from today, for example. So, you know, to do an emergency meeting of us, if we want to incorporate whatever they say. So
Okay,
I'll see what I
great.
can find out and let you know. And it is my hope that we can be setting the public hearing on the meeting on the 20th, the town board meeting on the 20th, and the public hearing then is 2 weeks out. So that is my hope, that we can get the public hearing set and get going.
Okay, can I make another motion then, please?
Well, we didn't actually vote on the first motion. So Connor, the one that Laura's to contact the Ulster County Planning Board, request expedited answer on scenic overlay, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, passed. Okay. Okay, so Jude has another motion.
I would like to suggest that the town board put the wellhead protection law and the communications law onto E-code ASAP. And not wait any long for the future adoption of anything else.
As a board, we want to request that. That's your motion.
Yes.
I do have to say, not for nothing. Clearly we don't want to rush housing. So it's hard for me to imagine housing catching up to these 2 laws. So I second.
Okay. Okay, there could be I know you say the town has plenty of money, but but the money has to come from the right bucket. But anyway, I can certainly make, I can ask on behalf of the ZRC. So, motion is ZRC, ask town. Okay, all in favor of that law, or that motion?
I
And I'm okay with that too, passed.
Laura, the thing is, I mean, if you're going to adopt laws, there has to be some bucket there that you would assume that you're going to publish it.
Well, it is published. It's not a perfect world, but I am saying it is on the town website. The town website is keeping track of the laws that we have passed that are not yet on E-code. So they are on the town website, but people do look for them in E-code.
They do.
I totally get it, but I do have to say, I think scenic overlay has a better chance of getting passed in this time frame.
Then the housing. Yeah, the housing is a big deal.
Does. And
So,
it's not a criticism. I'm just saying that's just.
Oh, no, I know it is what it is. So, okay, so cool. So I'm gonna, in the interest of watching my clock here, I'm gonna buzz down other stuff and just tell you what's going on. So what's going on? ZRC next focus areas. So at the town board meeting in April, actually, the supervisor did ask the ZRC to address signs and STRs. The reality of the STR committee, and we had a good conversation with that. We did not have an official meeting because there were just 3 of us, not a quorum. But Jeff and Connor and I had a great talk about the STRs and talking about how there is a Hurley law that maybe we should be looking at. The STR committee, upon hearing that the ZRC was ready to pick up the STR work, kind of grabbed onto it and said, no, it's still our baby. So they kind of seem stalled, but they don't seem to be stalled anymore, and they're motivated. We're waiting in the wings to pick it up, and I think that helped motivate them to say, hey, for whatever reason, for whatever's motivating the STR committee, they are motivated to continue their set of work and get it to a point where it can get passed. So I'm not currently pushing the STR committee because I know that they have a renewed focus and they're doing their thing. So I don't.
I don't know if I can, I'm sorry, I hear what you're saying, and before you go on, I don't think that's our prerogative. I mean, if Bill, if we have a directive to look at this,
Mhm.
this is tied up in all of the housing stuff. I mean, believe me, I think looking at signs is a good thing too. This is another one I have two opposing sort of positions myself on that I want to see
Mhm.
reconciled as best as possible. But the STR committee the STR part of this is serious, and
Mhm.
it's not about a lack of faith in any of them, but I think just like wellhead protection, just like, just like, so hopefully many other things, like these things should come through us eventually. And I do
Yes.
have to say, I do believe that if we had had a similar approach to housing, we would probably have had a law a little while ago.
Yeah,
I'm
or maybe,
I'm
maybe.
not, I'm not, again, not to it's not about any one person. It's just a flow of information and a way things can get funneled. So anyway, I'm sorry, Ed.
I think, well, first of all, I was part of the committee that wrote the original STR law. I wrote the first draft of the STR law, but a lot of these people that were on this committee, I think, are still on it. And
Mm.
before we bump them out of the way, we should have whoever wants to come in from the STR committee to talk to us.
Mhm.
There's Linda Lover and Mark, what's his last name? Mark
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 Antman.
Antman is a fine old Woodstock activist for 30 years, and
Oh
is
yeah, I'm not at all saying we should
he's a
sidelight him.
he's very, very smart
Yeah.
and honest and a good Woodstocker. So we should bring in Mark to tell us what the bottlenecks there are. He'll know what bottlenecks there are
Yeah.
in changing, because there's a lot of pressure on his street. There are all these STR people
Right.
logging in, oh my God.
Well,
So Connor, I do, let me just jump in. So, I mean, I do, that Rome wasn't built in a day, right? We're doing a lot of stuff. And so I wasn't going to push like this instant. Again, I like to do things smoothly. I want to have the STR believe that they're ready to pass it to us rather than saying, I don't care where you are right now, we're yanking it out of your hands. I think it makes sense to do it smoothly and find out where they think a good stopping point is. So I see it as a negotiation. Jude, go ahead, Jude.
Well, I was just remembering how with the telecommunications law, Steve Roman and a number of other people participated in the meetings, and why couldn't that occur for this?
Well, it could. So it'll be a little more discussion. I know how the STR committee, and I didn't speak with everybody on the STR committee, but I know how they felt. They were surprised. They were kind of surprised by the news that their work was going to come here. And so I think I'd like to see it done smoothly. So I think it takes a little
and I'm sorry,
conversation.
but I want to clarify a couple things really quick, Ed. I should have said, and it didn't go without saying, I've actually talked to Linda, and I've tried to kind of say exactly what you just said, which is that, we need you to come in and share your knowledge and be a sort of, guiding force for this. It's not a seizing of your documents. It's a passing of the baton. This is it's not a, all one person's glory kind of thing. It's just, this is the next logical step. And so when I say we shouldn't be waiting on them, I'm sorry, Laura, because what I do disagree with is, much like housing, but for this is a little bit more hits home for me because of the way I've always felt about this law. I don't know what will have changed, or what their renewed interest in this issue that they were tasked with, essentially somewhat encapsulating in a way that we could make some actionable changes to the law. I don't know what their renewed interest is going to do for that sharing that information and getting us involved now with this same idea of let's put more heads into this table wouldn't do. So
Well,
I don't
okay.
really want to wait for them. I'd like to invite them to come in and share their findings as soon as possible. I don't see the utility in waiting for when they feel good about it, because what's happened already is that we essentially did that and nothing ever came from it.
Yeah, okay.
And-
So let me kind of go back through this and then we'll go back to that question because I'm watching my clock here. So I do want to say the supervisor passed two things to the ZRC. One was the sign committee, which is not an existing committee, and there are volunteers. I just want to share with you who all I've seen on the email. So my understanding right now is the sign committee, besides me as a ZRC chair, has James Conrad, who is, I think, affiliated with the Golden Notebook, Laurie Osmond, who I believe is a realtor, but she's also deputy supervisor, Chris Compton, who is on the WEC, Woodstock Environmental Commission, as well as the planning board. I don't know Robert Kernet, but Linda Tiano, I know. I'm not sure if she's still considered the owner of Catskill Mountain Pizza because I think the next generation is doing it. But in any event, she's been a very key person in town and businesswoman in town. So that's who's on it now. And I have not yet set up a meeting for the sign committee. I don't know whether, since it's really a ZRC led thing, it'll definitely include me. I don't know of all of you on the phone. Do one or two of you want to be part of this? Or just want me to go take it and run with it? Or
I would definitely like to be a part of sign and STR. I'd like to be close to those.
okay, so I'll say add
I'm just a little confused. Sorry.
go ahead.
The STR committee right now, or for whoever's going to be working on the STR law, it's Jeff, you, and Connor, right? But then with the sign committee, you're talking about a committee that is some people from the ZRC and then a whole bunch of other people?
Well, because the way some things get done is kind of like the Housing Oversight Task Force was a set of people from different places. Like you want some business leaders talking about signs because it affects their business. And when we did the even the water district wellhead protection law, to wrap that up, Bill assigned a group of people that was not just zoning revision committee people. It was, well, these are different people that have different stakeholders. Let's put these 7 people together and have them finish it up. And then this group of 7 that I led finished it up. It came back to the ZRC and then it moved forward. So it's not unusual when there's a case, when there's something when there is something that people across town care about, it makes sense to have representatives in the different stakeholder groups that care. So the sign committee right now is going to have a bunch of people that are not ZRC, but if some people on the ZRC want to be part of it, I'm happy to have a meeting that includes ZRC members as well as the other people in town, some business people who really are the ones who are the stakeholders for this. So I'm totally okay with it.
But you're not doing that with the short-term rentals.
Well, the short-term rent, well, see, that's a really good question, is how to transition. So the word I've used for short-term rental is transition. We don't need to transition the sign committee because there is no sign committee. We just need to create it. When you're transitioning something, it can be a little trickier than creating something. So creating something, poof, there you got it. When you transition something, you do have to listen and understand where it is and how to make it go. So your point's a really good one. Having people from the current STR committee, join Connor. And Jeff, I know you had said you're interested in STR, and Jeff, can I still put your name on there?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of confused over, I think what Judah's saying. I'm not really sure what our role is here because I don't see anything coming from the STR committee.
Well, right. And that's kind of the issue. And that's why Bill was going to give it to us because he hadn't seen things coming from the STR committee. But that being said, so when we work on STRs, Jeff, should I add your name to working on STRs?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think the most important thing this town can deal with right now, and we need to deal with it in a way that that works and is legal. And, you know, I personally, I think I think I've said this before. The county prefers right now the Hurley STR law over any other STR law in the county.
Did you just delete the STR part of that?
Oh, you know what? Something went funny. All of a sudden I was doing something, all of a sudden there you go. Thank you.
So is the next meeting for the STR committee as it stands right below there, Monday, July 10th and August 14th, or is that sign committee and STR committee respectively?
No, this is ZRC. These are our ZRC committee
Okay.
dates. These
So-
are our ZRC dates.
So
So I don't know, I don't actually have I understand the STR committee meets on Fridays. And
when?
Just a clarification, Laura, and maybe you said this. So is this that the STR committee is going to continue and we're asking to be added to it? Is that exactly what you're saying, what we're doing here?
no, what I'm saying is that yeah, so I shouldn't say add Connor. Okay, when moved to ZRC.
Can I participate in that too, please? I wasn't at the last meeting, but this.
Yeah, yes, that's okay.
Yeah, it's probably the most important thing that anybody.
I
can
mean, we all can. What I would like to say though is when you say add Connor, add this, what I would be willing to do, if possible for me, is to go to their next meeting or see it recorded and see where they're at. Let's see what this
Right.
renewed vigor looks like,
Right.
because I feel like either way, I would like us to it's not about taking power, it's about passing the baton. And so if we start to think of each other less as, and present this less as competing boards and an ongoing dialogue, not you're going to hand us all the work you did, we're going to put our names on it and get it done. But, you're going to hand us this work and you can and we're all people living in the same town. If we respect this open things, they can come to our meetings. They can be a part of this dialogue. There's no end there, but that's what I just want to put out there, that like, I don't want to, if they drop the ball on this again and it takes more time, it's just, again, it's not there. There's no confidence inspired despite the affection I have for people on that board.
Yeah. Okay. So all that being said, there's stuff to be figured out. So plan the transition. Plan the transition to ZRC, and yes. So I will see what I can find out about that.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Is there anybody on the CCD on this sign group? Because that would seem to me like that would be kind of critical.
The STR and the signs?
No,
Say again?
No, the CCD. Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Is anybody on the CCD on the sign group?
I would think that would be at least 2 people from the CCD should be involved in the sign group. I mean, that's what.
Okay. Question.
I mean, there should be kind of equal representation there.
And just curious, do you think that intersects with complete streets at all because of the ADA kind of implications of the conversation? I mean, a lot of the sign stuff was about sandwich boards, but depending on because again, I have very conflicting ideas about this because I am sensitive to the business aspect, but like, you can't have our sidewalks just be a labyrinth of A-frame chalkboards. We have to there's a middle ground.
Yeah, good point. So we don't have all the answers there yet. So all good conversation though. So in any event, those are good, again, good questions. Let me put a question mark in there.
And I'm sorry to go really far back, but I don't know if we put this anywhere, but my question about, that 80 to 120% threshold, do we need to make a note of that anywhere to send that back to HOTF? Because that is just something I really want to have.
Well,
addressed.
a really good question is, I mean, ZRC members, it sounds like as a ZRC, we might want to spend some more time on giving a Housing Oversight Task Force response. And I think that would be on the list of Housing Oversight Task Force. Or Connor,
Okay.
you could put a request into the zoning updates at woodstockny.com or .org. I'm sorry, woodstockny.org, or zoning updates at woodstockny.org. You could send an email and say you have, that you don't think that is the good range. The range ought to be lower. It shouldn't be 80 to 100%, maybe 60 to 100. So I think that you could send that. But if we do want to have a ZRC response, that could be included in the ZRC response.
I'm willing to wait for that because I think this board speaking as one would be nice. Believe me, I've tried to have spaghetti sessions and one-on-one sessions here and there.
Mhm.
I'm not saying I feel like blown off. It's just on top of all being interested people and, trying to row in the same direction, we all have lives and we're trying to manage them as best we can. So in an organized fashion, I would love for us to send, a nice complete list of questions then with that
Yeah,
among.
okay.
I'll send out the HUD chart so you can see it, Connor.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll put this,
I
I'll
do want
even
to
bold
say
it.
60% though of 50,000 would be 30,000. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
It's not 60% of 50 because 50 is 80%. I'll send you.
Well, no, I'm saying 60 for me. It was, if that was a threshold we could do, I was saying 60% to 100 instead of
Gotcha.
80 to 120. So that would
Right.
just really, sauce the meatball.
Well,
Okay.
it's a little more realistic for the people that I think that we're talking about.
Uh-oh, I think we lost Ed.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's right. So in any event, so I added on our July 10th meeting, let's talk about Housing Oversight Task Force law response. Okay, because we ought to get going on that. So why don't we make that a topic at our July 10th meeting?
Sounds great.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground. Does anybody want to approve the agenda, which we just went through?
So moved.
Yay, Connor. I'll second. Laura, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Okay. Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we break? Well, great meeting. I really thank all of you for being here. Because I love the idea of sharing. Everybody is so passionate, but everybody has such great ideas, and we're making things better by sharing ideas like we are. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second. Oh, Jude seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. So we're all together on July 10th, and I'll try to communicate what I know between now and then.
Thank you, Laura.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.